Hi, my name is Paul Lincoln. I'm co-owner of Comforts of Home, a private duty home health agency. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that you need to consider when you're considering home health. First of all, you're beginning to have a relationship not only with a company, but also with caregivers that are going to be guests in your home. When they come into your home, it's a tender and delicate environment that must be respected. The caregivers try to provide the care that they need. But at the same time, they need to strive to have the client maintain some semblance of independence. So there's a delicate balance between care and also the client's independence. With regard for how the process starts, typically it begins with a phone call and then an intake or an admission is discussed where you talk about a care plan, finding out what the health needs are of the client, whether they've been injured, whether they've recently had surgery, whether they are having Alzheimer's or dementia. Through the assessment process, a benchmarking will be taken. Typically, you'll get some health vital signs taken, and then a nutritional map and some guidelines for the type of special medication needs that also might be necessary in the home environment. Bathing and grooming are also things that might be considered. When the patient becomes very debilitated, part of their self-esteem is clearly linked to their hygiene. Some people don't want anybody in their personal space, but nonetheless, once bathed, groomed, and prettied up a little bit, they feel much better about themselves, and sometimes it helps to speed the recovery and also the outlook on life to go rejoin society and rejoin the community rather than isolating as many of our seniors do. Many home health agencies have the caregivers come in and they'll do routine things such as the meal preparation I mentioned earlier, very simple things. The laundry gets done, companionship gets done, running errands, etc. When the care plan is made, there's a couple considerations that need to take place. One is how is it going to be paid for, whether it's long-term care insurance or whether it's private monies, and that's typically the case in many home health private businesses. Key questions that you need to know about the companies that you're going to be considering to do business with are how long are they in business? Who licensed them? How often are they checked upon, i.e. for keeping their credentials up to speed? Also, is there staff employees? Are they independents? Who takes the taxes out? Liability insurance is another question. Who carries the liability insurance? Is it the employees of the company? Or if they're independent contractors, is your independent contractor carrying their own liability insurance? Those issues with liability protect the family members and with regard for the guests that are coming into their home, such as the caregivers. With regard for the business, there's other criteria that need to be considered. How long has the company been in business? Do they background check their employees? The health of the caregiver is important because the caregiver is going to be going into the home environment. Are they trained in universal precautions, meaning cleanliness, hygiene? Are they also tuberculosis free? So they have to be, it's mandatory in Florida to be TB tested. Also, whether or not their CPR is up to date, their Alzheimer's training is up to date, whether fall precautions are up to date, medication reminders up to date. These are all different certificates that are supposed to be maintained in a timely order and re-evaluated every time they expire. So it's important to ask the questions of the company whether or not the caregiver that's going to be sent to the home is fully credentialed and up to speed. Whether there's driving going to be needed. Does the aide have a valid driver's license? Is the insurance for the aide current? The driving situation can also be handled two ways with regard for vehicles. You can either use the family's car, and at that point what you're going to want to do is add a rider onto your insurance policy so that you can have an additional driver, or allow the aide to drive. Often, with regard for private duty home care, the caregivers are in there such a long amount of time that relationships build and observational cues that aren't prevalent to family members other than the aide and perhaps the spouses. The caregivers become a key conduit for healthcare information and the well-being of the client. So pick your caregivers and your companies very carefully. There's great experience in having a caregiver in the home. People convalesce better, nutritional needs tend to be much better, weight comes on the people that are failing, and there's a better outlook on life using care, private care. Also, please know that whenever you're given a home company to utilize, know that you are a consumer first and foremost. Regardless of who's telling you who you should use, you have a choice. And at any moment, there is no long-term contract that you've signed. You can begin and end your services at the stroke of a decision and the stroke of a pen. So with that, thank you very much for your time here today, and enjoy learning on the Elder Channel.